From the studios of Cheshire TV in Keene, New Hampshire, it's The Men's Room, a show by men, about men, and for everyone. Sponsored by the Monadnock Men's Resource Center and hosted by Damien Licata and Forrest Seymour.
Hello everyone and welcome back to The Men's Room. I'm Damien Licata, this is Forrest Seymour, and if you are watching this on YouTube, Merry Christmas. For the rest of us...
jab at me for taking so long to get these on the
No, really, I would never do that. But you know, for the rest of us, it is a eerily warm October, and maybe it's global warming. Maybe our guest will have something to say about that.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
The show is sponsored by the Monadnock Men's Resource Center, which also sponsors a drop-in support group for all men, 7 o'clock Sunday nights, 25 Roxbury Street in Keene, and we're going to say a little more about that at the end of the show.
Yes, we will.
And I wanted you to say that I was, speaking of YouTube, and I'll get those shows, I'll get more shows up there as soon as I can, I swear. Yeah. We have comments, of course. For those of you who are familiar with YouTube, you can go on and view videos. You can view a lot of our past shows, and you can post comments. You can say, you know, good job, guys. You know, that's great. Or some other things.
Or something else.
Yes, which actually people are very willing to say, and it's pretty interesting. I mean, there's some decent comments. I mean, people who are commenting on the content of the shows and
serious comments, thoughtful comments.
Right, there are a few of those, or a good deal of those, and then there are a few. There's a few that are just sort of like completely out there, and then there's, you know, there was this one that I was tempted to delete out, which I rarely would delete out a comment, but there was one I was tempted to, but I didn't, and it was the one. Should I say what it was? It was the one.
What was it? Well, first, what was it in response to? Do you remember what program it was?
I don't even remember. I think it was. No, I don't even remember which show. It was so kind of disconnected, but it was like it was suggesting that women in Keene were ugly. And that was somehow relevant to a conversation. And
that was
that was the whole problem. The whole problem is.
Okay.
And so now I could have deleted that one. It's fairly offensive, but I left it on just to sort of, you know, remind people about. I think some of the sort of visceral reaction that, you know, just talking about men and gender, you know, even questioning the choices men make about their masculinity as if we have choice.
Right. Well, I think feminism was explained away in very similar terms.
That's right. It's just
been
about something about attractiveness.
Right.
You know, as if.
Yeah. I think Rush Limbaugh made that point.
A beautiful man, a beautiful person.
Absolutely. Well, he's lost a lot of weight. You know, he said he.
What's those drugs, isn't it? No. Okay. All right. So we should move on?
We should move on.
Okay.
Yeah. Get to our guest. We don't have a lot of time.
No, we don't.
Well, I just wanted to invite all of the women of Keene to respond to that.
You have to click around. I'm sorry, I don't remember which show it was connected to, but And you can get to the shows through our website at mmrconline.org. That URL will roll past the screen at the end of the show, and then you click through to our archive, and you can get to YouTube that way. So we have a great guest today.
We do. Yes.
And an old dear friend of ours, Jim Duffy, who has lived and worked in Keene for 12 years. He's currently on the City Council. He's an at-large member of the City Council. He's on he's the chair of the Keene Cities for Climate Protection Committee. He's on the board of the Heading for Home organization, I guess, which focuses on housing issues in Keene. He's a member of the advisory board to the Friends of Center City. He's a chair of the Climate Resilience Communities Committee, obviously involved in a whole lot of stuff. One of our founding fathers of the Monadnock Men's Resource Center, formerly on our steering committee and a facilitator of our drop-in support group. He is a family man and is running for re-election, so don't forget to vote on November 6th here. And welcome to the show, Jim.
Thank you.
Welcome, Jim.
Thank you, Dave. It's nice to be here. Appreciate it.
It's great to have you on.
Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
So, are you a freshman member of the council?
Interesting. Well, I'm in my freshman term. It's a 2-year term. I was elected back in 2005. At-large councilors run every 2 years, or are elected every 2 years. All 5 at-large councilors have 2-year terms. The ward councilors are elected for 4-year terms. And each municipal election every 2 years, it's staggered. So the at-large, half of the half of the ward councilors are up for re-election every 2 years. So.
And is there a limit to number of terms?
No, there isn't.
Great, good. No. So you could make a career of this.
Well, I don't know.
Well, but you certainly seem to have you know, really embraced it. I mean, I've been very impressed. I mean, all these committees and stuff, particularly around environmental kinds of stuff that you've taken on. I mean, this has been important. These are important issues to you, obviously.
True. I mean, one of the main reasons I and my platform when I ran for the first time, and it is again, this time is sustainability, concerns for the environment, the need for all of us, the city and all of us to really start to work together more on dealing with these issues. You know, the environment affects our economy, our health. Yeah. You know, it's a crucial right. issue, and I'm very heartened in the past years. You know, this issue is getting a lot more attention and credibility in the media, and I think Al Gore's movie had a lot to do with that. But also, you know, even statewide now, Governor Lynch announced a few weeks ago he's going to form in the near future a climate change task force, a statewide climate change task force. So this is it's very important issue, and you know, it's something we all are affected by.
So you know, this is the men's room. You know, so why? I mean, what is a connection in your mind between, well, being a man or men in general and environmental issues? I mean, what do you see there?
That's a good question. You know, when we talk about men and women, the gender roles we've played throughout our civilized history, you know, our human history, and you know, it's clear that men have played a greater role in exploiting our natural resources, and men generally are responsible for creating our military, economic institutions, our you know, our religious as well. It's mostly men who've built our roads and our public buildings, and are more active in the public realm, public participation. I mean, that of course gratefully is changing in the last century, especially, but and traditionally the gender roles women play, you know, dealing with things closer to home, childcare, you know, food preparation, more social networking. Men have been in the public role. So a lot of the issues that we face today due to you know, the degradation of our environment, certainly I think it's healthy for men to take a look at what has happened and take responsibility in some way for that.
We often hear the phrase nurturing the environment, and I think that, you know, traditionally we think of you know, women as being the nurturers, you know, and men being not so much. And I think there are probably a lot of men out there who would take exception to that characterization.
I agree. Yeah, and also interestingly, I just based on what you were saying in your introduction about you know, the negative things said about feminism, that you know, feminists are not attractive women. If women act in assertive, aggressive ways, characteristics we admire, supposedly in men, there's something wrong with them as well. So yeah, certainly it is.
But men have that aspect. I mean, men can be nurturers.
Oh yes,
certainly be caretakers, and are being so more and more. I think both in terms of what we're talking about in terms of the environment and at home with their own children.
Exactly. And that's been changing a lot. I mean, I just compare the way I was brought up and what I do now in the household is much different.
Yes.
The roles were clearly defined. You know, my mother did not work. She stayed at home with the 5 of us and cooked, cleaned, did everything. And you know, my father was out, you know, working. And it's really our generation, I think, where we've seen a big change in that.
Well, some of us taken kicking and screaming into that new change.
That's right. Oh, for sure. Well, I was going to say, I think, would you say that we're sort of, you know, reaping the consequences of a different sort of role that men have played traditionally, a different aspect of masculinity, which is more about dominance and control, and
like paying the price in the environment?
Environmentally, yes, in terms of that.
I would think so, and if I may, that's a nice segue. I brought along today someone I admire, Elizabeth Cady Stanton. She was one of the first women who in the women's suffrage movement, and back in 1868 she gave a speech called "The Destructive Male," and she was speaking in favor of what would have been this, well, the 16th Amendment. It ended up the 19th Amendment, the right for women to vote. But she was speaking then for the right to women to vote in 1868. And I'll just quickly, two quotes I think that are interesting, that really inspire me. One is, "The male element is a destructive force stern, selfish, aggrandizing, loving war, violence, conquest, acquisition, breeding in the material and moral world alike, discord, disorder, disease, and death. See what a record of blood and cruelty the pages of history reveal. Through what slavery, slaughter, and sacrifice, through what inquisitions and imprisonments, pains and persecutions, black codes and gloomy creeds, the soul of humanity has struggled for the centuries, while mercy has veiled her face and all hearts have been dead alike to love and hope.
Whoa.
Now that's
pretty damning.
I feel bad for me, but you got to give her credit, because later on she speaks in this way, which I think it's important to make note of as well. She says, in speaking of the masculine element, I do not wish to be understood to say all men are hard, selfish, and brutal, for many of the most beautiful spirits the world has known have been clothed with manhood. But I refer to those characteristics, though often marked in women, that distinguish what is called the stronger sex. For example, the love of acquisition and conquest, the very pioneers of civilization, when expended on the earth, the sea, the elements, the riches and forces of nature, are powers of destruction when used to subjugate one man to another or to sacrifice nations to ambition. Mm-hmm. So, what a wise soul.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, she didn't live to see the day. She died in 1902, I believe.
So this wise,
18 years before women were granted.
This wise woman never got to vote.
No.
She never did.
Isn't that amazing?
No. And she was a mother.
She certainly had her influence.
Yes,
yeah,
without a doubt. She was tireless and quite an inspiration to me. Yes. Yeah. But as you can see, she talks about that as well. That what that impulse to for conquest and for to create social order too. I mean, that's the way we've evolved. It's
well, civilization itself.
Yeah.
Right. Is some people might consider just civilization as being a blight on the planet.
Yeah.
In some ways.
Yeah. And civilization is what, 10, 11,000 years old from what we know, and modern humans, from fossil records, we're about 130,000 years old in our current form as human beings. So
that's such a speck of time.
It's
amazing.
It's a blink of an eye, actually, when you think about it.
Right.
But I mean, it's great to cite a scholarly resource such as that. And so I feel I have to cite another one on the same time. I'm going to cite the second Terminator movie.
Oh,
there's been many papers written about that movie. Trust me. Yes,
and this is the one where the female, and I've forgotten the character's name, but the female protagonist in this, she's at the end. She's got the big gun and she's pointing it at the computer scientist who's written the done the thing. And
I remember she got pretty beefed up.
Yeah, she did. It was pretty interesting. Yeah. And so she says this thing, which I think is such an interesting thought, which is that you men, she says something to the effect of, you create all these horrible war machines, all this destruction, because you can't have babies. You don't get to you can't make babies, and so you got to do something else. And so you create all this horrible violence, and which is interesting. I mean, I mean, you've thought about this stuff, and you've worked around environmental issues, and and I know that you have thought. We all have had conversations about men and men's right. I mean, what do you think?
But it's not all destruction and violence. I mean, I think that's
men
probably
are not all destruction.
No, they're not. I mean, I think that creative impulse, I think, has also produced, a lot of the things that have also been problematic. Some great architecture, some beautiful cities.
Yeah.
But it is a creative impulse, and she may be right. I mean, that may be. We don't have babies, but there certainly are.
But is it out of competition? Is it like we are competing with women because women could do this amazing magical thing that we cannot possibly do, and so are we competing with them, looking for some realm in which we can do more, better, stronger, faster, and by side effects destroying our planet?
I think that's certainly an aspect of it. Certainly. I
think there's an aspect of the fear of women's power in that sense.
The fear of nature as well, which we have. We think of nature as feminine. It's interesting. Throughout, I mean, there are civilizations, there are groups, Native Americans and other groups throughout the planet, even to this day, who live in within nature, so to speak. I mean, Western civilization, the idea, our thoughts are to transcend and dominate and control. We are the masters. So that's certainly a dynamic as well. But it's interesting. I mean, the more rational human beings have become, the more averse to the creative or the nonlinear or the feminine throughout history. I mean, in the Middle Ages, people with mental illnesses who seemed to be a little bit off were tolerated. Right. But throughout the Age of Reason, you see people who were behaved that way were persecuted more and were shut away and suppressed. So I think, there's a lot of stuff going on, and also I think from evolutionary necessity, for human beings to get to a point, you had to have women giving birth, obviously, or else humans would not reproduce. They had to be cared and nurtured for, and men had to go out gathering food. And so I think humanity, to me, is something that's evolving. There's certainly the striving. There is certainly an imbalance, I think, between masculine and feminine cooperation, I guess is the way to put it, in the world. Certainly within the last 10,000 years, as we've become civilized and started to live in cities and build cities, you see that it's quite obvious, and I don't think it can be denied in any way that men have been responsible for much of what we consider good and bad.
But as you say, we're evolving. I mean,
exactly.
I think a lot of times, people will look back on these sort of primal origins of humanity to explain a lot of current behavior.
Exactly.
But that doesn't wash when you look at it as we're not. No, we are moving beyond that.
And actually, a sign of evolving is what Elizabeth Cady Stanton mentioned, that the fact that what we assign to men as positive qualities we consider negative in women, but I don't see that so much these days. I mean, the character you referred to in the Terminator movie was, acting in what we've called traditional male role, firing away with the gun and
I lament
killing
sometimes
the problem.
The fact that that women are glorified for resorting to the same sorts of violent conflict resolution that men have done for
I know there was a point many years ago where I was first becoming sort of aware of some of the issues around feminism and so forth. I mean, when I was like a teenager, that I began to think it would be great when women get more fully involved in politics and so forth, because it's this was like the 70s, and there's a lot of stuff going on around that, because it will become a more peaceful world, right? Now I haven't seen that happen. I mean, we have Condoleezza Rice, who I don't see her being a particular force for peace any more than Colin Powell was or something. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, it's interesting what I think you're touching on, that I haven't seen yet that there has been a huge difference in the way, sort of on a national level. But I think about, like, on the city council, such as you are. I mean, nationally, our government is still way dominated by men. On all parts of the government.
Most aspects of our life.
But the city council, I think, is more evenly divided. I'm not quite sure, but
there's there's currently four women on the city council. Out of 15.
Out of 15. All right. So it's not as it's not as equal as I thought it was. Yeah. So what? So yeah. And
well, again, just quick. I lost my thought with your comment. But on the bright side, things have changed. I mean, women have only had the right to vote in this country for less than 100 years. 150 years ago, women and children were considered property of men. Right. So I think things are moving certainly in the right direction. It'd be nice to see things happen sooner, but the key is that men and women need to share power and responsibility in deciding what we do as communities, as nations, as the world.
Men can't just sit back and wait for women to take over, and that'll be the solution.
No,
I can't.
You know, no, I'm afraid not. I think you know, men are going to have to sort of, you know, put on our.
We have to adapt. You know, we have to adapt.
Right.
We have to adapt.
Yeah. So
certainly.
So on the you know, we've talked sort of about this sort of like the big picture here.
Yeah.
You know, and so forth, and there are there's definitely, as you said, both globally and nationally, you know, where our federal government is no longer denying the existence of global warming, for example. I mean, that's a hopeful sign. So things
Slow progress.
Things are starting to move a little bit.
Yeah.
So, but what's been happening locally? I mean,
locally, well, there's a lot happening locally. The last few years I've seen with different groups, but as far as the city goes,
yeah, right here in.
Well, the Keene was the first city in New Hampshire to join the Cities for Climate Protection campaign. That's partnering with a group called ICLEI.
ICLEI?
ICLEI,
Okay.
formerly called International Congress for Leadership in
unfortunate
Environmental
name.
Initiatives. They're just called ICLEI now.
Okay.
Yeah.
One letter away from a really bad name.
And what ICLEI has been doing with greater success throughout the years is partnering with municipalities, you know, cities, and getting them to reduce their CO2 emissions.
Yeah.
So actually, the city was actually doing things before they joined up with the Cities for Climate Protection campaign. Our landfill, the recycling center, is the electricity is captured, the methane is captured and generates the electricity for the recycling center. That saves, I apologize for not knowing exactly, but it's between $38,000 and $50,000 a year in electric costs. We pay PSNH $7. That's how much it costs to print and send the bill and send it back. So that's what the taxpayers are paying for the electricity at the. Also biodiesel. We've converted our municipal fleet to biodiesel, which is a great benefit health-wise, and you know, reduces the amount of car emissions.
Yeah. Now the municipal fleet consists of what?
All the public works vehicles and the fire trucks.
Okay.
The police cars are now biodiesel.
What about the public transportation, the bus?
The City Express and the Friendly Bus. I think the one I'm getting a bit confused, but one of them has a number of buses, the new ones that ride that use biodiesel, and you know, they have the newer ones has a bike rack, so people can actually put their bike on it and ride, and then, you know, use the bike, so that increases. And we're working, you know, we're working to increase our bike pass and try to make the city more pedestrian friendly. There's efforts to create some ordinances around energy efficiency and sustainable design for our buildings. The public works, the new public works facility is powered on geothermal. So that's how part of it, not all of it, which is you know, tapping into the heat and the earth and using it to,
I don't think of this as being a particularly geothermic area.
No, it's not. Unfortunately, they tried to do it with the police department. They couldn't because the water table was so high. So it didn't quite work. It's an evolving technology, but it's very effective. Saves a lot of you know, a lot of energy costs, plus is helpful to the environment.
Now, there's one thing I know that you have talked about in conversations we've had in the past. I'm just wondering if there's any action on in this area. Is the green roofs?
Oh, that's part of sustainable building practices. We don't have any green roofs in Keene, but recently there was a proposal that the City Council endorsed for 92 Water Street, the old building that had to be torn down recently because it was unsafe. Ecological Builders and they plan to put a green roof. They plan to build a you know, retail, part residential. That's you know.
For folks who don't know,
green
what is
building.
a green roof exactly?
Green roof is well, actually, there's two types, but there's the ones most commonly used. There's a thin membrane put over a roof, and native vegetation, about yay thick, an inch or two thick, is put on it. And what it does is it
So like that much soil?
Yeah, it absorbs rainwater, and that decreases runoff, because a lot of runoff from big buildings
It's coming off of buildings.
comes off of buildings and gets into our water system, and it has pollutants, you know, toxins. So it's not healthy for the water. They also help with heating and cooling costs as well. And with green roofs also, you can capture water. Usually you can capture water coming off it and use it for like irrigation purposes, or you know, put them in cisterns and stuff. So the whole idea behind green buildings is not just the roof, but how you insulate, how you you know, would southern exposure, which is a common New England you know, practice anyways. I mean, a lot of this is grounded in common sense.
Right.
And the idea is
there's this period when we've had this you know, carbon-based energy stuff that we've just been able to squeeze use so much that we got away from a lot of those more sensible building practices.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, oil. You know, we read about in the papers, and we know from the price of home heating fuel that's gone up, and you know, gasoline, that it's getting more and more expensive, and it's not healthy. Actually, in New Hampshire, the cost of treating illnesses due to poor air quality is $1 billion a year. Wow. That's from the American Journal of Epidemiology, a 2005 article.
In New Hampshire alone? In
New Hampshire alone, 100 premature deaths. Now that, if you look at the state budget, that's 20% of the state budget. The state just passed, they're about $10.4 billion for the 2-year cycle. So that's 20%. And a lot of people looking for treatment or needing treatment, I would guarantee, don't have adequate insurance, and that's another burden on the taxpayer as well. Now, granted, a lot of that is created in New Hampshire, that poor air quality, but a lot of it is coming from other parts of the country as well, the prevailing winds. But still,
paying the price for not attending to our children and our health care and all those sorts of things.
It's all anybody talks about, and hopefully we'll be able to. I think, again, getting back to the male-female thing, I mean, gender equality will make it easier to deal with these critical issues, whether it's the environment, healthcare. I mean, it's actually, you know, it's all interrelated. I think women understand that intrinsically more than men.
Well, that's a good note. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up.
Already? Oh, geez.
This has been fascinating.
It has.
Well, same here. Glad to see you guys again.
Thanks so much for coming on the show.
No problem.
Take care. Wish you the best of luck.
Sure. Everybody should vote on Tuesday the 6th, and you'll be there. That's exciting.
Yeah, I'm on the ballot.
Yeah. Excellent.
Thanks.
Great.
Take care.
Good.
So,
thanks, Jim.
So gosh, got my juices flowing here.
Yeah. You know, I think that the whole idea of, you know, how we conceptualize masculinity and being a man is so tied up in how we've treated the environment. And I think that it's something we need to look at. You know,
and I'm glad
because it's the biggest illustration of, I think, where we may have gone astray.
Right. Paying the price. So real quickly, our drop-in support group to all men, 7 o'clock every Sunday night at 25 Roxbury Street.
That's right.
Which is right in Keene.
In Keene. Yep. It's in the Life Art building. Like they very generously donate that space to us. Thank you.
Right between the bar and Aubuchon's Hardware.
That's right. That's right.
These are landmarks there.
That's right. Two male landmarks in town. This is bar and hardware store.
And it's a great thing. All men are welcome. No obligation to talk. It's last couple hours. Get there at 7 or a few minutes before, and it's facilitated by trained facilitators.
That's cool. Right. Yeah. So come in, check it out.
I'll be there this Sunday.
Well, I may be as well. I'm not sure.
Great.
Yeah.
Nice to see you there.
We'll be. So thanks everyone for joining us at the men's room, and we will see you again next time.
Yeah.
And you can, as I mentioned earlier, check us out on YouTube. And please, you know, send in some comments. You can email us at our website, or you can comment directly on the YouTube site.
And the URL for that will roll in just a moment.
That's right. It will.
Thanks for joining us in the men's room.
You've been watching The Men's Room, sponsored by the Monadnock Men's Resource Center and hosted by Damian Licata, co-director of the MMRC and executive director of the Granite State Monarchs, and Forrest Seymour, co-director of the MMRC and a therapist in private practice in Keene. You can learn more about the Monadnock Men's Resource Center, see past shows online, and find our Cheshire TV schedule at mmrconline.org. And thanks for joining us in The Men's Room.